Hello everyone, my name is Martin Joyner. I've put my contact details on the front slide because I want to save the last slide to burn into your eyes and your memory forever. If you want to get in touch with me in any way, just add co.uk to the end of my name. I'm Martin Joyner on Twitter, Martin Joyner on Stack Overflow. It is apparently not a particularly popular name. I've managed to scoop them all up. So my talk is about dependency version constraints. You're all using these, and I'm talking about this kind of stuff. You would have seen it in your package.json or your composer.json. The general name for these are version control systems. Let's break down what we're talking about. This is the package name here, and this bit is called the version constraint. It tells your build what you want, and more specifically, I'm going to be handling the nuances such as what does that mean and what does that mean. Let's break down what a version number is. When you see a three-part version number, it's usually semantic version numbering. The final number on the left is the patch version. This increases when a bug is fixed, and it happens a lot. There's no functional changes. There's just unexpected behavior removed. The middle number is the minor number. This increases when there are small breaking changes and new functionality. Things where there's more configurability added to the package or the application. A method might take an extra argument, something that's quite easy to fix when it breaks your build. The major one, this one rarely changes, and this represents a change in direction of the software or a big sexy launch of some kind. And this is likely to break your software. In my experience, this rarely happens more than once a year that you bump up the big number. So that's Semver. Oh yeah, it's sometimes abbreviated to Semver, as I naturally did. I'm going to talk about 5 types of version constraint. There are other weird ways of doing it, but I'm not going to cover them. You've got the exact one, the literal one, the asterisk, the greater or equal, the hat, sometimes called the caret or circumflex, and the tilde. The exact version is very literal. You say that our application requires this, our build requires this, and you get exactly that. The advantage is no surprises, it's very, very safe, you always get what you want. Disadvantages is that you do not inherit any patch fixes. So if you've asked for 1.2.5, a bug is found and 1.2.6 is released, you're not going to inherit that next time you build your software. So security vulnerabilities will not necessarily be brought in. Exact version is not often used. The asterisk or the wildcard, notice I am saying asterisk, not asterix. Asterix is a French cartoon. This is a bugbear of mine. The asterisk, otherwise known as the wildcard, this is quite familiar. People seem to find this quite intuitive to understand, don't have a problem with it. It locks down the major and the minor version. Obviously, you can write the asterisk on the second one as well, and it will lock down just the major one. So it is intuitive. It gives you the bug fixes in that you will inherit a different number on the end, but it can go up as well as down. So I've cancelled out the advantages of the bug fixes. And what I mean by this is if you're running an application in your environment and your composer environment happens to have cached version 5, and then your colleague takes on your code and builds it in their environment, if they haven't run a composer update to get the latest version, they might actually build with 1.2.2, a lower version than what you were building with, and it won't make a single noise, which I think is bad. I think it should make a noise. You should have a minimum version to say that I built this in 0.5, for example. The greater than or equal, this, in my opinion, is a bit crazy. It just gives you, it locks nothing, it just gives you a minimum version. It allows everything to change, and all the breakages come in. When I see people using that, I really don't understand why they're using it when you have the next 2 options available. The hat. This one locks down the major version number, and it allows the bug fixes to move up from the minimum of 2.5. It also allows breaking changes in. So I've considered the final one to be a positive, but the second one to be a bit of a negative. And I've got a real life story about this in a moment. The tilde, this one locks down the minor version number, which by virtue means it also locks down the major one. This one has got the advantage in that when you build in future, you're going to inherit in patch, bug fixes, and there's also no breaking changes. It doesn't allow that middle number to go up. I'm always surprised when people use the hat rather than tilde because if I want to bring in new functionality to my application, if I'm taking advantage of new functionality added to a library, I'm doing it actively because I've discovered about it, and I want to be involved in that decision consciously. I don't necessarily want my package to bump that up without me knowing, because if I've inherited new functionality, by virtue of me not knowing about it, I wouldn't have written any code that depends on that. So why would you need it? So this is my real world example. This happened in September. I was working on a tiny little bug fix, and our build just broke. It would not go through the build process, and we were getting big fat errors. I was running a PHP 7.1 server and Laravel 5.8, so relatively up to date. Nothing wrong with that, all legitimate. These are genuine ones. If you do an install of this, this is what it will do. Laravel will require Igulias, I don't know how you say that, email validator version 2. And the email validator requires Doctrine Lexa version 1 or higher. So it's got the hat, so it locks down the major version number. From September 2018, version 1, which was being pulled in, obviously it required PHP 5.3.2. So it was one of these lovely packages that is really backwards compatible. It has no opinion about what environment it runs on. They haven't done anything particularly clever. They're not showing off. They just want it to work on every single environment. Then in June, silently, they didn't tell anybody, they didn't tell the Laravel developers, they released version 1.1, which suddenly they went from a very flexible stance on PHP to a very rigid 7.2 stance. I haven't looked into why they did that, but I think they must have got very excited about something in PHP 7.2, and that's quite a huge change. But they only bumped the minor version number. They called this one 1, and they called this one 1.1. They did not call it 2. And I imagine the conversation was that they haven't really made a big U-turn or a big sexy launch. All they're doing is making it more efficient. So they felt that it was appropriate to do a minor release. But we immediately had a big problem in that our server was 7.1, but we require 7.2. I fixed this in 20 minutes, and I felt very proud of how I fixed it in 20 minutes with the knowledge of understanding how Composer and Package Manager works. And that's when the idea to do this talk was born. I knew that all I had to do is up at my application level, I had to add a requirement which was not there at all, which was just for Doctrine Lexa tilde 1.0. So whereas the standard Laravel package requires hat 1.0, just by adding that, I can still satisfy that because tilde 1.0 is less strict, hat 1.0 is less strict than tilde. And it all works perfectly because I've now told it, do not bump up to 1.1, stick with the one you always worked with, and carry on building. So that's my real world example. So I've given you that knowledge. I saw a few phones going up and taking photos of the key slides because you have obviously always asked hat or tilde, what locks what, and you will forget this and you will Google it. And when you Google it, you will end up on this Stack Overflow page. and on this Stack Overflow page, you will see it's got 3,069 upvotes, 856. Imagine what that Stack Overflow contributor is doing with all those imaginary internet points. They're probably on a yacht somewhere. However, every single person in this room right now is never, ever, ever going to have to go to that page because I'm going to teach you a way to remember this forever. I use mnemonics to remember things, and I use visualization to remember things. I've done quite a few memory challenges in my time, and they've done me well, and very few of them have been truly worthwhile. A lot of them are just fun. Like remembering all the CEOs of Silicon Valley software companies just for fun, to see if I could show off in meetings. So this is all going to burn into your mind. 1.2.5, we turn it on its side. It's logical. We got the major, we got the minor, and we got the bug. When we hear tilde, what do you think of? One of the greatest acting talents of our time, Tilda Swinton. And what do we do with Tilda Swinton? We put a hat on her. So the hat goes at the top. The hat locks the major number. Tilde locks the minor version. Now we've got to make this fun. You've got to remember this is going to be burned into your vision forever. So I'm going to do some audience participation. Tilda Swinton, shout out, what do we do? We put a hat on her. Tilda, what do we do? Tilda, what do we do? Yes, there we go. One more time. Major, minor, patch, tilde, we put a hat on her. And that is the end of my talk. Thank you very much. Hmm.